Good morning, everybody. The Senate Committee on Nominations will come to order. The clerk will please call the row.
Chair Campbell.
Here.
Vice Chair Sparks. Here. Senator Alvarado. Senator Eckhart. Senator Hughes. Senator LaMattia. Present. Senator Miles. Present. Senator Paxton. Present. Senator Springer. Here.
You got it. 6 being present, a quorum is established. I'd like to remind everybody that the proceedings are being recorded, so please silence your cell phones. For those who are wishing to offer a testimony before the committee hearing and public hearing, please fill out a witness card, which can be found on the table in the back. Then return them to the messenger here at the side, and the messenger will give the card to the clerk, either one of you. We do have an important task before us in making sure that the individuals who are appointed to serve Texans in the great state of Texas in the government is best suited and qualified for their jobs. Members, since we have a quorum, the nominees who were presented on our Monday, February the 27th, posted agenda were left pending. I would like to call a vote on these pending nominees. Are there any requests to sever? If not, Senator Sparks moves that nominees left pending on February 27th be favorably reported to the full Senate for confirmation. Clerk will please call the roll.
Chair Campbell.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sparks.
Aye.
Senator Alvarado. Senator Eckhart. Senator Hughes. Senator LaMattia.
Aye.
Senator Miles.
Aye.
Senator Paxton.
Aye.
Senator Springer.
Yeah. 6 ayes. The Senate on nominations favorably recommends that the full Senate confirm these nominees. Thank you, members. Before we hear from the nominees that were invited to appear today, I'd like to recognize our guest senators. And in this case, we have the Dean of the Senate, Senator Whitmire. Each senator will be given 2 minutes to give their introductions. Then nominees after it. I know you never take that long. Nominees will have 2 minutes. With that, Chairman Colonel Kevin Lilly, who's been reappointed to the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, just please stand where you are, and then the chair recognizes the Dean of the Senate, Chairman Whitmire, to introduce Colonel Lilly. Senator Whitmire.
And I have just 2 minutes?
2. 2, sir.
I can quickly tell you, if your mission is to see that the best suited person is appointed for that position, mission accomplished, because Kevin Lilly not only is eminently qualified before he was originally appointed, but his financial background, his U.S. military service, and his service to our state as a regent on the University of Texas system. But what I really want to talk briefly about is the job that Mr. Lilly's done currently as the chairman of the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. He's brought that public service experience and financial institution experience to, I don't think it would be too strong to say, transform the agency. I've never seen the agency in better shape than it is. Having been in the Senate for a number of years, quite often the TABC would come to our attention with some issues. I told him the other day the fact that I don't hear about the TABC these days is a great sign, because we're normally pulled in the direction of problems. So the fact that the agency is running so smoothly, the morale is so high by the employees, and they're doing their job, speaks highly. It starts at the top. So I'm proud to recommend Kevin Lilly to you for reappointment. He has his wife with him today. He's a family man, but he looks out for the families of Texas. In my district, we quite often have issues with clubs, bars, underage drinking, DWIs, human trafficking, you name the whole list of responsibilities. He's meeting them head on. So with that, Madam Chair, I'm proud to present to you Kevin Lilly.
Thank
Kevin,
you, Dean Whitmire. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
public
it.
service.
Thank you. So we'll have you wait, Colonel, and we'll bring up nominees all at the same time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The chair now recognizes Chairman Hancock to introduce General Thomas Seltzer. Seltzer. Would you please stand? This is our adjutant. And Senator Hancock, welcome this morning.
Thank you, Chair Campbell and members of the committee. You can sit now. I always wanted to do that to a commander. General Seltzer has an extensive, distinguished career of military service spanning decades. After completing a bachelor's degree in political science at the United States Air Force Academy, General Seltzer earned a master's degree in aeronautical science from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. General Seltzer then decided his life to serve the United States Air Force in various capacities while on active duty as well as the Air Force Reserve. His ascension through the ranks from pilot training to most recently the Deputy Adjutant General Air of the Texas Military Department is a testament to his dedication to his country and an impressive aptitude. I'm grateful for the willingness to serve this state in the role of Adjutant General of the Texas Military Department, and I urge the committee to move forward on the confirmation. I will say he's, in our discussion, I let him know that, the fact that everything's quiet means everything's going really, we view that as everything going really well, and so he's been there for about a year now, and things have been very quiet, so well done.
You pretty much echoed what Chairman Whitmire said regarding everything quiet on the front, and it's all
We
good.
tend to think alike.
Thank you, Senator Hancock.
More than some people would like.
Okay. Now, and you both, I know you've got other places to go. We'll call the members up, the nominees up a little later.
I'm going to leave him in good hands.
Yes, sir. You sure are.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, sir. Mr. John Rutherford. Thank you. Just wanted to, we'll introduce you. You can go ahead and have a seat now if you'd like. Chairman Huffman is not able to be here this morning. So Vice Chair Senator Sparks will introduce you, Mr. Rutherford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Senator Huffman's constituent, Mr. John Rutherford, who was appointed by Governor Abbott in May of 2022 to serve on the Board of Trustees for the Employees Retirement System of Texas. Mr. Rutherford received a Bachelor of Business Arts from the University of Texas at Austin and a Master's of Business Administration in Finance from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. For more than 20 years, Mr. Rutherford has been actively involved in investment banking as a mergers and acquisitions advisors to the public and to private energy companies, investment firms, management teams, and boards of directors. Members, with decades of financial experience, Mr. Rutherford is the ideal candidate to serve on the Board of Trustees for ERS. Senator Huffman fully supports the nomination of Mr. Rutherford and appreciates the governor's appointment.
Thank you, Senator Sparks. Appreciate that. Okay, you've got Senator Cryer. On behalf of Senator Huffman, Vice Chair Sparks will now introduce, if I can have you stand, Dr. Kreiner. I know. Thank you so much for coming to visit me in the office. All right. Thank you, Doctor. You can sit down. We'll introduce you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Senator Huffman's constituent, Ms. Sandra Kreiner, who was reappointed by Governor Abbott in September of 2022 to serve on the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. Ms. Kreiner received a Bachelor of Veterinary Science and a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from the University of Texas A&M, from Texas A&M University, For more than 25 years, Ms. Kreiner has worked in the field of veterinary medicine. Members, with over two decades of veterinary experience, Ms. Kreiner is well equipped to serve on the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. Senator Huffman fully supports the nomination of Ms. Kreiner and appreciates the governor's appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sparks. Now you will introduce, is Ms. Marsha Moberly here? Oh, I know you are. I met you. Very good. Being appointed to the Board of Pardons and Parole. The Senator Middleton is not, he's in another committee hearing. We've got multiple hearings going on or getting ready to start. So we told Senator Middleton we would go ahead and introduce you. So welcome, Senator Sparks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Marsha Moberly is a resident of Sweeney and a constituent of Senator Middleton, was appointed to the Board of Pardons and Paroles by Governor Abbott for a term to expire in February of 2025. Ms. Moberly received a Bachelor of Science with a major in Criminal Justice from East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina. She brings over 25 years of criminal justice experience to the Board of Pardons and Paroles. She spent 12 years as a parole commissioner with the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles. Additionally, her experience in criminal justice includes North Carolina Juvenile Court Counselor, Texas Youth Commission Case Manager, Probation Officer for Young and Stevens County, and Chief Juvenile Officer for Deaf Smith and Oldham Counties.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Sparks. All right, we will now bring up the nominees that we've just had introduced. At this time, the chair calls Chairman Colonel Kevin Lilly, who's been reappointed to the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, to come forward. I promised him we did not have any knives, he said. So, thank you for your past military service. We welcome your wife. It was nice to meet her, as well as your continued service in the Texas State Guard. Thanks for volunteering to serve the state on the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. You have 2 minutes just for opening remarks before any questions.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senators. For the record, I'm Kevin Lilly. I'm currently the chairman of the TABC. And I am honored and humbled that the governor would reappoint me to this position. And I am certainly humbled as a public servant to sit before you as the representatives in the Senate of the people that I serve, which are the people of Texas. I would say that the last time I appeared before this body was not quite as cordial. That was a time when I was initially appointed that this agency was an agency that I would call in distress. The agency had just completed a appearance before the House Ethics Commission or Committee, and there were accusations of mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, heavy-handed dealing, and in general a lack of empathy toward the industry that we regulated. And so I came on board to restructure, redirect, redefine the mission of the TABC. Obviously, as in any agency dealing with such a large industry, we have a lot of work to do, and our task is probably never quite completed. I would like to say that some of the things that I did when I came on board was to try to make the agency more efficient by increasing the amount of time that it takes for an individual or an entity to become licensed in the state of Texas, which I can go into more detail when I'm off the clock. As well as improving the efficiency and the mission of our enforcement provision to protect legitimate businesses from illegitimate businesses, thereby preventing the destruction of legitimate profit and revenue for the state of Texas by focusing on and triaging toward those that would use illegitimate profits to gain in some of the most heinous crimes and also some that some consider more mundane. We have worked obviously in areas such as human trafficking, narcotics, money laundering, as well as over service of individuals, which I can talk about, which I'm very proud of, and a recent awareness with the fentanyl problem and trying to make and educate bar and restaurant owners to the problems of fentanyl and to the symptoms, such that if an individual or a young person comes in and they appear to be under the influence, they can seek medical attention. So I like to say that we have 3 E's. E cubed is sort of is a mantra that I am trying to pass along to the agency. E, to make it more efficient, to efficiency to the agency or to the industry that we regulate. E, to enforce, and to enforce the laws that you have presented upon us. And then finally to educate and enhance. So with that, that concludes my opening comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, Chairman. What would you say is the best use, and you touched on it with your 3 cubed philosophy there, what would you say is the best use of TABC's enforcement agents, their role in fighting human trafficking? How is that?
Sure.
Tell us just briefly that, if you can, about what that looks like.
Well, it's always been a question that people have asked, why would the TABC be involved in the human trafficking, in the prevention of it? And when I came on board, I think that, as you probably remember, the TABC, I think, had less than illustrious reputation as far as an enforcement agency. It seemed to be, at least the impact that, or the feedback from the industry, that we were often heavy-handed and focused, I think, on minor crimes as opposed to focusing on what I consider crimes against humanity. And the reality is that within human trafficking, of the top 4 venues for human trafficking based upon hotline call-ins throughout the nation, 3 of them fall within TABC's jurisdiction: hotels, restaurants, and bars. And many people are not aware of that the cartels, organized criminals, transnational gangs, as well as local criminals will use licensed establishments, TABC licensed establishments, as storefronts for criminal activity. And the problem is not just that it's a heinous crime, but also that it destroys the legitimate businesses that are literally down the road, that are trying to do it the right way. I call it a 95-5 phenomenon. 95% of the members or the institutions within our jurisdiction are law-abiding men and women, often small business owners who have their life savings placed in these institutions. And for them to be destroyed literally by illegitimate businesses that would use their businesses as storefronts is absolutely unacceptable to me. And I said my job to come on board when I found out of the problem with human trafficking was to eradicate human trafficking from all licensed establishments in the state of Texas. Obviously, along the border, it's a big problem. And I would say that also some people don't realize that TABC agents have a unique ability provided by statute. And that is that we can go into any licensed establishment in the state of Texas without a warrant. Consequently, that gives us enormous leverage, operational leverage, to do undercover operations, to do investigations. And so I felt that that was underutilized, and consequently I felt when I came on board in 2017 that we were underutilizing state resources and that we needed to capitalize on triaging our efforts to not to harass the law-abiding businesses, but to go after where the hot spots are. And so we have done so. And as you know, in law enforcement, trust and confidence takes time. So in 2017, we started to ramp it up. And in 2019, the Sunset Commission tasked us with human trafficking as one of our primary law enforcement missions, and we have done so. And I would say within the last 60 days, Madam Chair, we have had 4 significant convictions against some of the most heinous acts of barbarism, and that is crimes toward children, that is human trafficking young girls. We had a case in Houston, Texas, where I live, where they were luring girls from Mexico as young as 15 under the guise of working in homes as housekeepers, only to be forced by violence into prostitution at the young age of 15. Mission, Texas, a sports bar. Who would think that a sports bar would be a cover for human trafficking? And then a sexually oriented business in San Antonio that was luring girls through the internet. to come in and be exotic dancers, again, as young as 15. I'm proud to say that in those 4 cases, those were TABC-led investigations, led by our Special Investigations Unit, which is I believe, one of the largest undercover operations that we have in the state. That convictions have brought down, and some have been as we've shut down all those establishments, and we've had convictions and sentencing as much as 50 years. So the word is getting out. So our efficacy as not only a regulatory body, but as a law enforcement agency is being heard. And I want the bad actors, I want the 5% to understand that we are out there, that we are working diligently, and by the benevolence of this body and the Senate Finance Committee, where I testified 2 weeks ago, that we are seeking to continue to grow this agency, not only on the regulatory side, but also on the enforcement side, because that will help protect all Texas citizens as well as our industry.
Thank you. Thank you very much, members. And please show that Senator Alvarado is here and that she wants to vote yes on all the nominees.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, most certainly. Question?
Thank you. Welcome. I wasn't in the Senate when you came up for nomination the first time, but I recall many years ago, I guess during my time in the House, that the agency was in disarray. So I want to commend you for helping to get out of that rut. And any time that we've been asked to weigh in on permits, the agency has always been very responsive. I know from time to time, I know Senator Miles, in a lot of our communities, we have a lot of places that are quite a negative influence in our neighborhoods. And so I don't know if any of y'all have ever had the chance to do ride-alongs with TABC, with your local law enforcement, but it gives you a deep appreciation for the work that you do and sometimes the very dangerous environment that you go into. There has been an increase of places that are open after hours, and they're not selling, but people are able to bring in their own liquor. And I understand that's been a challenge for y'all because they don't have a permit, but they're places that are staying open till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and causing a lot of disruption. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because we're working on something in that regard, but I wanted to hear from your agency the challenges that you've had with that.
Yes, Senator, thank you. It is something that I am very focused on, but unfortunately, because they're called BYOBs, and they're basically unlicensed bars. And the process is they can almost be pop-up operations. Literally, you and I could go start one tomorrow. I'll give you a bad example. One of the sexually oriented businesses that we brought prosecution against for underage trafficking, when we first went in and shut them down, they literally reopened the next day as a BYOB, absolutely thumbing their noses at law enforcement. And at that point, there's nothing that we can do other than standard certified police officer operations, which then is obviously local. And so the problem is twofold. One is there's no accountability because there is even a $15 license. There's no way for us to know. We literally do not know how many of these exist in the state of Texas. So there has to be a way that we can understand and to account for their existence. Now, I know that there's been issues to say, well, you could, would this break up Super Bowl parties? I think all of us know that a commercial operation is different than you having an event at your home or at your high school or at a university campus. And so the BYOBs are a problem. And what happens is the bars close, the BYOBs open. And by the way, they also have exotic dancers. They also will sell alcohol. It's a haven for narcotics. And so, there are various solutions, but we as an agency have right now no impact. We have no capability to regulate. We have no capability to enforce. The burden obviously falls 100% upon the local police departments. They certainly have their hands full. So We would absolutely welcome any assistance from the legislature in dealing with this problem, and our staff will be happy to provide our input and assistance in that regard. And I know some of the local communities are working with local ordinances, I believe Harris County being one of them, to try to address this very significant problem.
No, that was it, but help is on the way.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Members,
Thank you, sir.
any other questions? All right, hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please show that Senator Hughes is present and submits a motion in writing to vote yes on the nominees from February 27th. The chair now calls John Rutherford, who's been appointed to the Employees Retirement System. The Texas Board of Trustees, come forward. Please have a seat. Let me ask one thing. Chairman Hughes, what time does your committee start?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are starting, we're set to start at 10:30.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll have you introduce your nominee next.
You're very kind. Thank you.
All right, very good. All right, thank you very much. You've got 2 minutes for any opening comments, if you would like to start.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's an honor to be here. For the record, my name is John Rutherford, and I'm Governor Abbott's appointee to the Employment Retirement System of Texas Board of Trustees. I was appointed in May of last year. If I may be very brief and just give a little bit more personal background, I'm a fifth-generation Texan, both sides, both trees. My grandfather was a beneficiary of the GRS. He was a retired judge. I'm married for 35 years to a second-generation Texan. We have 3 married children, 5 grandchildren, which is a long way of saying we've been here a while and we're not going anywhere. I was very excited to be appointed last year, and primarily it enables me to use my background, my business background, which is very focused on dealing with boards and fiduciary duties and valuing businesses, mostly energy businesses in the investment banking world. My primary role was to advise boards and owners of businesses on values of businesses and their fiduciary obligations. I was appointed last May. I went through Porter Wilson's indoctrination on what all the ERS does throughout the summer and have been through 3 full board meetings. With that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Very good. What issues do you see as the most important issues facing the future of ERS and the state employees that are served by the retirement and health programs ERS administers?
Well, I'll back up and say, and the ERS seems to be a very high-performing agency, and has been for years. And my role is really to complement the existing trustees. As you know, there were 5 before I was appointed, and so I'm trying to enhance the board and the governance. And in terms of the most important issues, both on the investment side and the business side, in particular on the investment side, we're probably going through the biggest structural change in 40 years from an investment perspective. So it's trying to work with the investment team and the investment advisory committee, and making sure we understand the implications of that. And then on the benefit side, to me, I'm going to be dealing with the ever-increasing demand for their services and the cost of those services. And obviously, those two are wedded together. To the extent that the costs go up, both from retirement costs in terms of just inflation and needs, and making sure the investments generate the earnings necessary to meet retirees' needs, and the benefit side. Because those are the big forces being brought to bear on the 2 sides of the agency. But I will say that from my perspective, the agency, my initial impressions are extraordinarily well run, and very grateful to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Rutherford. I think Senator Alvarado has a question up first.
Thank you. Can you comment just briefly on the financial stability of the system?
In terms of their portfolio?
Yes.
And as you know, it is, excuse me, the legislative action has been fully funded on the ERS side in terms of backstop. And then there are proposed bills, as I understand it right now, to backstop the LECOS and JRS. Okay. From the underlying investment side, their performance has been at the highest levels among all their peers. When I look at it from after 3 months of just looking at the underlying investments, it appears very stable. But in this environment, Senator, it's to me, you really need to know what you own.
Right.
Okay, so it's just an exercise of the team making sure you know what you own, because the world has shifted a little bit from 40 years of lowering interest rates and everything's going up. We'll have to know what we own.
Okay. And then if you could get this information for me, because I know you probably don't have it at the tip of your hands, but I'd like to look at the diversification of your money managers, your financial folks that work for the system.
You mean external?
Yes.
Okay, it's very broad, but we can easily get you that information. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks for being here. Thank you for serving and for using your expertise and your experience and helping the retirees and helping Texas. You talked about fiduciary duty. I want to ask you a little bit more about that. You are, given the world you're in, you're probably familiar with the concept of ESG and all that has come to mean as
Yes,
sort of
sir.
a moving target, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
very, very much a moving target and a broad target. Yes, sir.
And you know that ESG has been a big matter of discussion with ERS and TRS, because we want to make sure the focus is on maximizing returns for retirees, as Senator Alvarado noted, and not politics. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, again, you're so kind to serve. You have a great record. I just want to make sure that we're clear.
Absolutely.
Do we understand?
I appreciate that. It's a broad question, so keep going.
And so do we agree? Do we agree that our job is to focus on financial returns for retirees?
100%.
Not politics,
100%.
left, right, financial
100%.
returns for retirees, right?
Yes, sir.
I know you believe that, but we got to talk about it more, because some folks have
Absolutely.
gotten
And if you
confused.
back up, it's the core of our capitalist and economic system. So, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Any members, you have any other questions? I think it is important to have, make sure that we aren't mixing ideology with good solvency in choosing what goes in the portfolio for investments. Okay, no further questions, members? All right, Mr. Rutherford, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all. It's an honor to be here.
Sorry, I'm moving some things around, so I want to. 18. All right. Thank you. All right. The chair recognizes Mr. Long. Chairman. Stand up. Okay. Senator Hughes is recognized to introduce Mr. Long.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Long has served the people of Texas for a long time, and I've known him for a number of years. Senator Nichols has known him for even longer, and I'm proud to have him as a resident of the part of East Texas that I represent. worked in this field for 25 years plus, on the board since 2017, one of the first nominees that I got to work with as a new member of the Senate. His record is impressive, and really he's peerless in terms of his dedication, his experience, and the way he does this job, and the way he loves doing this job. So I'm so proud to represent him, and I thank the committee for hearing him, and I look forward to offering him my support in this nomination. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. So you'll be able to leave whenever you need to. Let's go ahead and call up Mr. Long. Why don't we, Chairman Long? Good morning, Chairman. You've got 2 minutes to opening remarks if you'd like.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to try to speak fast. Thank you to the respected senators on the Nominations Committee. Again, my name is Brian Long, board member with the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles. I'm out of the Palestine Board Office. It's a great honor to be here before you today. As long as I continue to honor my faith, my family, in this great state, I feel like I can continue to do a great job for this state. I am cognizant of the immense responsibility that board members have and entrusted with by the governor and the citizens of this great state, along with legislators. On a daily basis, we're required to make difficult decisions on those eligible for parole and also set conditions of parole. And when violations occur, make determinations of appropriate actions on those violations. In making such decisions, public safety is the utmost importance when making those considerations. Each decision impacts many individuals, not just the offender. It also impacts victims, which their input is very important to us. Over 30 years, I have dedicated my life to the field of criminal justice with immense enthusiasm and without any regret. I have worked extremely hard with other agencies and stakeholders involved in the parole process, and also to improve upon the parole process in Texas. Between the 7 board members and the 15 board commissioners around the state, we voted roughly 75,000 cases last year. And in those cases, we try to hold the offenders accountable, but also try to reintegrate them back into society successfully. We make these decisions with public safety in the forefront of our mind. Collaboration and transparency with the legislators, stakeholders, and the citizens of this great state are essential. Thank you for my time here, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Long. I appreciate that. I guess the chair is David Gutierrez, so
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you very much.
Yes, ma'am. And what a
Okay.
great chair he is.
Very good. A key concern of individuals, and you touched on it when you talked about public safety, but our concern is public safety. Can you talk how specifically public safety plays into the parole decision-making process?
Yes, ma'am. As I stated in my opening statement, that is in the forefront of our minds. Without public safety, how can we build safe communities? And then also, at the same time, we're trying to reintegrate the offenders back into society. So we're trying to do both. When we're making decisions, that's the first thing that we're thinking of is public safety. But we also must utilize the programs that we have available to us in TDC to try to reintegrate the offenders and try to help them reintegrate back into society.
Okay. October of 22, Mr. Hernandez that was released. I think an investigation had been done. He's the inmate who had shot someone after he was released.
Yes, ma'am.
You want to speak on that briefly?
Yes, ma'am. What a terrible situation that was. In that case,
If you want to just tell the committee briefly what happened.
yes, ma'am. Not too long after his release, he committed such a horrible crime at the Methodist Hospital in Dallas. He shot and killed a nurse and one of the social workers there. He was at the hospital to confront his significant other, who they had just had a child together. Then he committed that terrible act.
But investigation showed that the parole board did everything right. It's
Yes,
hard to
ma'am.
predict the heinous crime somebody may do after they're released. But the board felt that you still went through the regular process that you do before you make a decision whether to release someone or not.
Yes, ma'am. We followed our policies, procedures. We are discretionary voters, and when the voters looked at the case, he has served, by the time he was released, he served 85% of his time. He had done six years and 9 months on an 8-year sentence. And we believe in supervision. We believe in helping the offenders try to reintegrate back into society with the help with the parole officer. He had conditions of release, anger management. He had the electronic monitoring also, which, but these individuals, they come out with ill intentions. They're going to do what they're going to do, and it's unfortunate. I wish we had a crystal ball to where we could predict that, but we don't. We
Right.
have a lot of other factors that we look at to try to mitigate that.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Senator Springer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Long, I appreciate the conversation we had the other day talking about the challenges you face and potential legislation that's up that may potentially increase the workload in regards to lowering the age of juveniles that were convicted for extended period of time, having an opportunity rather than being reviewed for the first time at 40 years, moving that down to 20 or 30 years potentially. But in your commitment of, and the board's commitment to the other ones I visited with as well, of doing that same evaluation that says, is this person's, do we believe they're safe to reenter? Looking at all the circumstances from the crimes, but you don't see that as any different than everybody else you're looking at.
At this time, Senator, we look at a number of factors. And one of the factors that we do consider is the age at the time that they enter TDC. So that is something we're looking at, and also the amount of time that they have to serve concerning their max sentence. Because we don't set that time. That's set by the legislature, and that time is calculated by a different entity. But when they do come up for review, we review the case in totality, and that's one of the factors we are looking at.
Well, I appreciate the openness and to look at each case on its merits and circumstances of what happened many times decades ago in that. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Well, with that, thank you very much, Mr. Long, for appearing before the committee. For somebody who's dedicated 25 years of your career in law enforcement, beginning as a correctional officer, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And ultimate being appointed and reappointed by the governor. You're very accomplished. Thank you very much for being willing to serve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senators.
The chair now calls Dr. Sandra Kreiner, who's been reappointed to the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. Come forward and have a seat at the table. Thank you. It was wonderful to meet you the other day.
Thank you.
2 minutes for opening questions, if you'd like.
Okay. I'm honored to have been reappointed by Governor Abbott to serve on the Texas Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. I was initially appointed in April of 2016, and I want to share my deep appreciation for the hardworking staff of the Veterinary Board. They care deeply about the agency and what they do for the veterinarians, licensed veterinary technicians, and equine dental providers. Since I've been on the board, there are only 4 people left of the original staff, and that's about an 80% turnover. And last year we had a 52% turnover. And I consider that a leadership issue. And since the end of April of 2022, we've had a tremendous turnaround in the leadership. And the agency has moved forward. We've accomplished a lot of issues. We've dealt with a lot of issues that had been presented by the Sunset Commission. We're down to 1 to 14 days in licensing from a previous 30 to 45 days for licensure. And as of tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening, we will be down to 41 cases pending in formal conference from a high of about 240 when the new leadership took over. So I think they've done a good job. We've still got some issues that we need to manage, and I am open to answer any questions that you may have concerning those issues.
Thank you, Dr. Kreiner. The leadership you spoke of, you're referring to the executive director
Correct.
of the agency? Okay. And now you have a new executive director, and things have begun to move in the direction that you are expecting, you and the board are expecting.
Yes.
Very good. Sunset, I asked you questions regarding Sunset the other day, has repeatedly, and this may be improved because you have a new executive director, but Sunset has repeatedly documented the veterinary board's struggles to secure a database and ensure accurate data collection and retention. What are the board's current efforts to address these deficiencies? Because they were also addressed in the Sunset before.
Correct. So the board has been very active in trying to get that information, which you can actually go back into previous board meeting minutes and see that we had asked the executive director at the time to tell us how he's moving forward. We did not get that information, but with the new leadership, they've tried to get grants, and we've got an LAR, which is requesting funding, and we're hoping to partner with legislature to get a new data system.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for Senator Springer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to follow up on Sunset, it was very difficult to hear the challenges that the agency's gone through when we've spent substantial sums of money and don't have anything to show for it. Don't have, who got the money, what did they do? Those are substantial, challenging things that I think that as we go forward, it's probably why it's going to be under TDLR to be able to, give some level of oversight in those. But, the other thing that comes from that is, if the board is asking an executive director for information and isn't being given, I think it's upon that board to reach out to the governor, to the legislature, and let us know that, you see a problem and you're being stonewalled. Because we want to help you be successful in the mission of the board. And so, what I'm, want to make sure that we have going forward is a board, that's going to be open. It's going to hold the actual agency, accountable for what they're supposed to be doing, and checking and rechecking from these. Because, it's at a spot where, a lot of people are questioning what we should do with the board. And I know several veterinarians in the legislature aren't real happy with, it being taken away, but it could be immensely worse, I think, in a direction than TDLR oversight.
Right. I absolutely agree with everything you've said. One of the things we did in our first meeting of the year, which we had been working on, was address the policies and procedures, because we were definite in that we weren't going to have this issue occur again, where an executive director would ignore the board's requests and questions. So for any example, for any money spent over $5,000, it has to go to the finance committee of the board before it can be moved forward.
Okay. All right. Again, I appreciate that. Appreciate stepping in. I know, speaking with some other board members, hopefully they're refocused on the mission of it. Appreciate the time changes on those, but on the data, the database, and getting those things accomplished on a timely basis, I think, it probably is a little extra work coming in right now than it may have been perceived, but I appreciate your willingness to step forward on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions of Dr. Kreiner? If not, thank you very much for coming forward, and I hope the board can move forward with the sunset recommendations.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
The chair now calls up Marcia Moberly. Come forward, please. Thank you very much for coming forward. Ms. Moberly, you've got 2 minutes for opening comments, if you would.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Sparks, and Honorable Committee. I appreciate your time and consideration today. And I would just like to say that I am honored to be appointed to the Texas Parole Board. It is a very respectful and recognized agency, not just within Texas, but also internationally as we study and learn about our field. I have an energy and passion for service to our state and to my agency. I am fortunate to work with an outstanding group of colleagues. I have 15 commissioners and 6 fellow board members, and an outstanding leader in our chairman, Chairman Gutierrez. We work daily in consideration of public safety, and we also work significantly on work groups and committees that give foundation to our decision-making processes. I feel privileged to serve the state of Texas, and in my role as board member, I will continue to recognize public safety paramount to all other considerations. I will take a look at making sound decisions that are deeply researched, definitely fairly reasoned, and grounded in policy, statute, and law. I thank you very much for your time today, and with your approval, I would be glad to continue my service with the state.
Thank you very much. I've already asked the question before. You probably heard their answer. When making a decision who should be released on parole, what are some of the factors that you consider?
Well, always considerate of public safety, we also aim at the restoration of human potential. Specifically, we take a good look at the severity of the offense, the criminal history, the sentence length, the past supervisions, the institutional adjustments to include programming, educational programs, all of which occurs in the institution, as well as age.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions of Ms. Moberly?
Yeah, really, just to comment, Ms. Moberly, thanks for being here today. And, you know, I especially like the fact that you've had experience on the juvenile side, because I think that in a lot of instances gives you clarity in the overall criminal justice as well. So thank you for serving.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. That's a great comment, because you've been over 25 years with the criminal justice experience. So thank you very much for that. All right, no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Moberly. The chair now calls up the Adjutant General, Thomas Seltzer. If you'll come forward. Last name, got it correct this time.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Sir, you've got 2 minutes for any opening remarks that you would like to share with us.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Major General Tom Seltzer, and I'm appointed as the Adjutant General for the Texas Military Department. Madam Chairman, Vice Chair Sparks, committee members, thank you for allowing me to be here to testify in front of you today. Tomorrow will be 1 year since I was appointed by the governor to be the Adjutant General. I'm truly humbled and honored to lead such an outstanding group of people who serve this great state with tenacity and pride. A year ago, my assessment of the department was both visceral and alarming. Our people had lost trust in our organization. The border mission struggled with housing, pay, and equipment issues. Processes and coordination between senior staffs were breaking down, and solid leaders with future upward potential were contemplating heading for the exits. So task one for me was clear: rebuild trust. To this end, I built a new team of senior leaders. OLS members with bona fide hardships were allowed to return home. Border living conditions were improved with dorm-style housing. 43,000 man-hours were devoted to correcting and stabilizing OLS pay, and thousands of pieces of protective equipment, inclement weather gear, were sent to the border. I'm pleased to report that today, Lone Star is now a mostly all-volunteer operation, with 80% of our personnel volunteering to join or remain on the mission. And overall, Texas Army National Guard retention is higher than it has been in the past 4 years. Looking to the future, there is much to be done. I've reset our strategic priorities to continue improving the department. Additionally, we're working to increase tuition assistance, expand our mental health safety net, and improve our facilities. In closing, I would like to take a moment to publicly thank all the Texas Military Department families who sacrifice so much for our state and nation. Their support does not go unnoticed. Thank you for your time. I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, General Seltzer. For the committee, would you just give a top overview of what the Texas Military Department looks like? What military groups are under your control? The National Guard, our State Guard?
So the Texas Military Department is a complex organization because we have both a federal nexus and a state nexus. So I really serve three hats. So I'm the commander of the Texas National Guard, which includes the Air National Guard and the Army National Guard. My second hat is I'm the commander of the Texas Military Forces, which includes the Army National Guard, Air National Guard, and the State Guard, which is a volunteer state militia. And then my third hat is I'm the executive director of a state department. So I oversee also another subsection of our organization called OSA, and they handle all the state funding, equipment, and master cooperative agreements between the federal government and the state.
Very good. And being mixing departments, a volunteer group, Nexus, the State Guard versus the National Guard, how are the identities of those two groups separated, if you will? I mean, they work as a group, yet they are separate. One's volunteer State Guard, and one group is our National Guard. How do you keep the public from a state of confusion as to who is who, if that question makes sense?
No, it makes sense. It's difficult, okay? So if somebody says, I'm in the Texas Guard, what does that mean? Does that mean you're in the Army National Guard, the Air National Guard, or the State Guard? So there is confusion in the public when they see uniformed members out on the street as to whether that person's job is to be called to fight our nation's war in a Title X status under the federal government, and to respond to state emergencies, or is that person a State Guard member who is their sole responsibility is just to respond on the state level, but has no training or authority or call to go to an overseas mission?
Okay. Members, Senator Miles.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. General, do you have any duties, all the people that you oversee, do you have any duties at the border?
At the border?
Yes, sir.
So as the adjutant...
If you do, could you expound on what those duties are?
Yes, so as the Adjutant General, on Operation Lone Star, the military portion of that is headed by a joint task force that's led by a brigadier general. that Joint Task Force and Brigadier General reports directly to me through my headquarters. So in a sense, I am responsible to the governor and to the border czar for the operation, the military part of the operation on the border.
And what was those military operations consist of at the border?
So on the border, we have over 4,800 Brave Service members working every day to working on the water in boat patrols to help block and protect the state. We have inland, we have roving patrols, brush teams, which is teams that goes through the brush with law enforcement to try to apprehend individuals who don't want to be apprehended. And then we also have security points that are static points along the border. And in the air, we have aviation assets to include helicopters and drones.
Paid for by state funds.
That's correct. All operations, even though I said we do have this dual hat to go overseas, and most of that training and operations is paid for by the federal government. All border operations are paid by the state.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator LaMantia.
Sorry, just to clarify, so the border czar, you answer the border czar as opposed to the other way around in the hierarchy.
Correct. So prior to the border czar, obviously as the Adjutant General, I answer to the governor of the state of Texas. And I execute my portion of the border mission based on his guidance and intent. He now houses within the office of the governor the border czar to help formulate plans, policy, and strategy for the border. So I still answer to the governor, but those communications are through the border czar.
Members, any other questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to confirming you as our adjutant.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I would like to now pass the gavel to Vice Chair Sparks while I introduce some further nominees.
The chair recognizes Chair Campbell to introduce Christopher Monson.
He can go ahead and have a seat at the table. He can go ahead.
You may have a seat at the table, please. And please state your name for the record.
Certainly. My name is Christopher Monson, for the record.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, it's my pleasure to introduce Christopher Monson, a resident of Driftwood, who has been renominated by Governor Abbott to serve as our Chief Administrative Law Judge for the State Office of Administrative Hearings. He was first appointed in April of 2019. He is the 5th Chief Administrative Law Judge to serve at the State Office of Administrative Hearings, also known as SOA. Prior to his appointment, he served as Assistant Solicitor General in the Attorney General's office, where he spent 15 years working as an expert in Texas administrative practice and procedure. Board certified in civil appellate law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization. He's a member of the State Bar of Texas, Fifth Circuit Bar, United States Supreme Court Bar, and the Western District Texas Bar. Mr. Monson received a Bachelor of Arts at Wabash College and a Juris Doctor degree at the University of Texas Law School. I think it's safe to say that he's very well suited to continue to serve as our Chief Administrative Law Judge, and I look forward to the Senate confirming you, Mr. Monson, for another term. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Monson, you have 2 minutes for any opening comments or questions.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sparks. Senator Campbell, members, I'll keep it brief. I'm very honored to be appointed as Chief Administrative Law Judge for the 3rd time. The past few years have been years of challenge and growth for the agency, but we have adopted an internal philosophy of why not better. You know, we've continually faced. Oh,
speak a little bit.
Sorry. Oh, excuse me. We have adopted a agency philosophy of why not better, as we have met challenge after challenge, both from the transition during COVID to primarily video proceedings and the implementation of our new case management system. We've been trying to reinvent the agency from the ground up, reallocate our resources more appropriately, and to ensure our core function, which is to provide the people of Texas with both equal protection and due process in proceedings before executive department agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Monson. The chair recognizes Chair Campbell for questions.
Thank you, Chairman. When you were appointed in 19, yes, SOA was struggling to fulfill requirements of the Sunset Report of 15, which required significant issues. That's okay. We'll bring a cookie jar next time. No problem. But anyway, Sunset recognized docketing of driver's license cases. That was a problem, and the management of employees to maintain and improve their independence from referring agencies. So I think you touched a little bit on that. You talked about challenges. What specifically can you address from the Sunset?
From Sunset, well.
And I know it's been a while.
Yes, ma'am. So we have readdressed all of our fiscal and finance side things very quickly, but the more difficult thing has been taking over the driver's license docketing. We are just at a place where I can safely say that we have complied with all of the most recent Sunset Committee reports requirements, most significantly taking that driver's license process over from DPS, and we are now have enough data that we can harness that data to do a better job and make the system much more efficient, and we look forward to that over the next 2 years.
The SOA's authorizing statute requires the chief administrative law judge to protect and ensure administrative law judge independence from referring agencies to ensure that the provision of quality of hearings are maintained. How do you fulfill those statutory mandates?
Well, I kind of see it as having two pieces. And I came from the Attorney General's office, where I was.
I'm sorry, what?
I came from the Attorney General's office,
yes.
where I was part of the Solicitor General's office. And one way you can see that body is kind of an experiment in managing government lawyers to do their best job that they can possibly do. And I feel very strongly about that calling to unleash my folks to do the best job that they can do in service of the people of Texas. And so we have rejiggered our hiring. We have really worked hard to give people a sense of fulfillment and that they are mission-oriented. And we have adopted a more complete set of management training and advancement strategies in order to hire and retain the best possible people and to maintain their sense of their role in the government system.
Okay. Thank you very much. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Members, any questions? Thank you, Mr. Munson, for appearing before this committee.
Thank you.
The chair calls Craig Hester, nominated by the Supreme Court of Texas, to the Employees Retirement System Board of Trustees to come forward. Please have a seat. The chair recognizes Chair Campbell to introduce Craig Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, it's my pleasure to get to introduce a new constituent from Austin, resident Craig S. Hester. Mr. Hester has been renominated by the Supreme Court of Texas to the Employees Retirement System of Texas, the Board of Trustees. Mr. Hester was originally appointed by Chief Justice Wallace Jefferson in 2015 after serving 13 years on ERS Investment Advisory Committee. Mr. Hester has been involved in the investment management industry for over 50 years, beginning in 1972. From 1988 to 2012, he managed his own firm, Hester Capital Management. In 2013, his firm merged with Luther King Capital Management. He currently serves as Vice President and Principal of the Austin Office for Luther King Capital Management. Mr. Hester graduated from the University of Texas at Austin with a BBA in Finance in 1971 and an MBA in Finance in 1972. He's a member of the Executive Committee of the University of Texas Chancellor's Council and the Littlefield Society. Mr. Hester is married, father of 3, grandfather of 2. I think it's safe to say that Mr. Hester is more than qualified to continue his service on the Employees Retirement System of Texas Board of Trustees, and I look forward to the Senate confirming Mr. Hester. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hester, you have 2 minutes for opening comments before questions.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chairman Campbell and Vice Chairman Sparks and the senators for the opportunity to appear before you today. Really appreciate, it's an honor to have the nomination from Chief Justice Nathan Hecht to another term on the ERS board. This will be my fourth term. I served a partial term starting in 2005 after serving on the Investment Advisory Committee. So I look forward to serving again. The retirement system is a critical employee benefit package for the state employees of Texas, and it's quite comprehensive. There are 5 trusts in the retirement area that we oversee. There's the Texas Group Benefit Plan, or the Health Select Plan, the Texas Saver, which is a flexible spending, a Tex Flex, which is a flexible spending account, and then Texas Saver, which is the 401k and 457B plans. The pension plan itself is over $33 billion. In Texas Saver, we're north of $4.2 billion in those assets as well. And then, of course, in the health plans, we serve over 500,000 of the people of the state of Texas. So it's quite a comprehensive plan. And our goal is to make sure that those assets are wisely and prudently managed, and I am committed to that role as a trustee of the retirement system. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hester. The chair recognizes Chair Campbell for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I was very interested. Thank you for coming to the office the other day. It was quite interesting to learn about the 5 trusts that you were just talking about. I enjoyed meeting you. Thank you for that. It was quite a learning, eye-opening conversation. So as the longest serving member on the ERS board, what would you say has been, with what you've had to go through before and where we are now, what is the most significant change the pension board can make, plans to make in the future?
Well, I would say the most significant change to the plan has no doubt what was done in the 87th legislature by passing Senate Bill 321, which set up a legacy payment system to eliminate the unfunded liability in the pension plan, and then also the establishment of Group 4, which is a cash balance plan. That was a game changer decision on behalf of the Texas legislature, and I can't tell you as a trustee from what we've seen on the actuarial financial side of the plan how important that was. That sets the plan on a path forward to eliminating that unfunded liability and to financial stability. I would say, secondly, Senator, there's important decisions before this body in the 88th legislature. In House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1, in the budget, there are plans to continue the legacy annual payments that were established in the 87th legislature. Also, to fund the normal cost and eliminate the unfunded liability in JRS 2 and in the law enforcement and custodial plan. So it would set all of the plans on a sound financial footing. It's critically important. And then a second leg to that is Senate Bill 30 and House Bill 500, which would establish a one-time $1 billion payment to the pension plan toward eliminating that unfunded liability. That'll save the state of Texas, as estimated by the Comptroller's Office, over $5 billion in interest cost over the life of the legacy payment. And it moves us 5 years down the road to being a fully funded plan. So I've seen us go from over 100% funded to below 70% funded, and these two changes are mission critical. If I may, I would say there are 2 other significant things that have occurred over the years. The other one relates to the management of the health insurance plan and the pharmacy benefits plan. The board made a decision all the way back in 2012 to change the third-party administrator That was a significant event because since that time, we have seen a substantial reduction in the cost of managing the overall health plan to the state of Texas. And as a result, we have not needed to come back before the legislature for any additional funding above the base amount that was approved in 2017. And I would like to, big congratulations to the staff at ERS that manages this process. They've done an excellent job on the procurement side and containing cost. And the fourth and final thing that I would say to you is that it's impressed me and has been important over my term of the board has been the quality and the dedication of the staff at ERS. There are 400 individuals at that agency today that are totally focused on making sure that these benefits are secure for the employees of the state of Texas.
Thank you. And so with legislation to come and legislation that we passed last session, the pension funds are all set up for solvency.
Yes, ma'am.
100%.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members, are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Hester.
Thank you.
Look forward to your nomination being confirmed.
Chair calls Dr. Steve Galla, nominated to the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners, to come forward. Please have a seat at the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Chair Campbell to introduce Dr. Steve Galla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Steve Galla, a resident of New Braunfels, who's been nominated to the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. Dr. Galla currently serves as Medical Operations Veterinarian for Innovative Pet Care in Austin, which focuses on veterinary operations and medicine at veterinary practices across Texas and the southern and eastern part of the United States. Dr. Galla received 3 degrees from A&M, Bachelor of Science in Animal Science, Master of Science in Animal Science, and a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. He's held membership in several organizations, including the American Veterinary Medical Association, the American Association of Bovine Practitioners, American Association of Equine Practitioners, and Texas Veterinary Medical Association. A note of interest, Dr. Galla serves as one of the official veterinarians of the rodeo in Austin. His professional experience will enable him to be a valuable member of the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners, and I look forward to his confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Galla, you have 2 minutes for any opening comments.
Will you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Dr. Steve Galla from New Braunfels, Texas. Vice Chairman Sparks, Senator Campbell, members of the committee, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to visit with you this morning. I come here really excited. I'm the newest appointee to the Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. I was asked by the governor's office this last April to participate, and after some powerful persuasion, I finally said yes. This was not something I ever wanted on my resume, but considering the things that were going on and the value that I can bring to this board, I eventually did say yes and submitted to that request. I'm a 5th-generation Texan. I grew up a farmer and rancher in East Bexar County, German, Polish descendants. Animal agriculture and animals have always been a big part of my life, and veterinary medicine has been something I've wanted to do since I was 3 years old. This is my passion, is the practice of veterinary medicine. I've been fortunate enough to graduate from a great institution in College Station and was able to practice for the last 22 years in this profession, really all across the state. I had 4 practices in Lockhart, Luling, New Braunfels, and Gonzales, so since Central Texas is my home. But through my experiences in the last 22 years, I practiced in Amarillo, in the Valley, West Texas, East Texas, Wharton, Brenham, around the Houston area, and I have a lot of relationships in regards with the veterinarians across the state. For the last 20 years, I have participated in the Texas Veterinary Medical Association. In 2021, I was the association president. So I'm very, very familiar with all the issues that the board is currently facing and how we got here. And I hope I can bring some leadership, strategy, communication, and transparency to help solve our problems and move us forward to serve the people of Texas. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Galla, and I appreciate your willingness to consider being a part of this process. The chair recognizes Chair Campbell for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Gola, the question I asked Dr. Kreiner, Sunset has repeatedly documented that the board has struggles securing a database and ensure accurate data collection and retention. I know there have been some changes with executive directors. Would you speak to that? The Sunset request, and because they had to re-administer that same request, and talk about that, please.
Absolutely. The data management system is the biggest deficiency of this agency. And there's really, I'm the guy that doesn't know what I don't know in regards to the past history, but what we do know is the outcomes of where we've gotten to today and where we need to be are not acceptable. We need a data management system that can function and be successful. And I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. We have systems that other agencies are using, like Versa and the Dental Board, that we can implement, and we can collaborate with these groups that already have these systems figured out so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I would hope if we can get the appropriations that we need from the state to be able to implement a system that has already been proven to be successful, then we can get back on our feet so that we can be transparent, track our data, and do our job.
There's talk of moving the board under TDLR versus being independent. Do you have comments on that?
Sure.
Let me interrupt you. I think it's because there's been a lack of, as you said, success regarding the data that really needs to be managed well.
Absolutely. And I've been one that's been critical over the last 6 years with my role with the association about the board and the outcomes that we're getting. And I think there is a time for a reset. And we need some collaboration and some oversight to make sure the decisions that we're making, the monies that we're being appropriated, are spending appropriately. But I hope that would be more of a collaboration with TDLR, because I think there's things that the veterinarians bring to the value to the board as industry experts. We are the ones that understand the idiosyncrasies of the profession that help us make the right rules and the right decisions. What we need help with is just strategy and implementation of the software, how we spend our appropriations, and then how we strategically communicate with the legislator and the governor's office.
And I know you've got a new executive director, Brittany Sharkey, who's sharp and very good. So I think that will also strengthen the position of the agency. Given the ongoing threat of controlled substance diversions, can you describe efforts of the board, the agency to target its resources to deter drug diversion more effectively going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. As somebody who has touch points with over 85 different clinics across the country, this is the one issue that keeps me up at night, is how are we controlling our controlled substances in our clinics? Now, we are not a major source for diversion in the country, thankfully. I think most veterinarians are honest and intimidated about the responsibility to hold these things, but there are bad actors that are out there. And the first thing we have to do is we have to inspect and let folks know that we're looking. And since I've been on the board in August, we've already increased our inspections by 5-fold of what we did the last year. We've done over 340 inspections since August, and we're on pace to keep up with the expectation as set by this legislative body. Secondly, we utilize the resources that we have at our fingertips, the PMP, the Prescription Monitoring Program. I know there's some criticism about veterinarians not necessarily being directly in it, but there's some issues there in regards to the Prescription Monitoring Program, whereas if you look at the healthcare agencies, that program fits them as a glove because they're the hand. If you consider the veterinarians were more of a foot, that glove doesn't fit as well. But we can still use the PMP every time we go and investigate a clinic. We can look and see what prescriptions they have written or those appropriate. And so we're already utilizing that program even though it's not official. And then finally, there's ARCOS data. There's data that the pharmacy board shares with us that we can look and see what type of ordering has been done by these veterinary clinics before we inspect. And I think there's a real opportunity for us to work with the pharmacy board a little bit more collaboratively and intently so we can really look at those controlled substances that veterinarians are ordering and make sure that if there is a significant adjustment in their ordering behavior, that can signal a flag, and then we can look and say, hey, what's going on here? Historically, you've only ordered 5 fentanyl patches, but last month you ordered 50. At that point, I think that would then flag us for an investigation. So there's some real opportunities for us to collaborate with all the agencies that we cross-connect with, specifically the Pharmacy Board, to help us with this controlled substance issue. And the final thing I would say is us being able to adjudicate cases for those that are practicing veterinary medicine without a license on the border who have controlled substances, yet don't have a license and kind of fall in the shadows of veterinary medicine. That is our biggest opportunity, and we look forward to working with you guys to help figure that out.
Well, if they're, just one more comment. If it is a question. If they're not licensed to practice, then they're practicing without a license, obviously. I mean, I'm just restated the obvious, but are they not being picked up and
Well, and that's something that
arrested or?
Absolutely, and that's something that since August, we've already had a record number of those cases being adjudicated and fines being sent out and cease and desist orders administered. And so we're very proud of that. We're making progress, but that really just started with the new leadership under Brittany Sharkey that we're really going to take a higher focus on that to try to make sure we can bring that to an end.
I appreciate you doing that. Thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. Members, are there any other questions?
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for your time today. I return the gavel to Chair Campbell.
The chair now calls Ms. Elodia Brito. Come forward, please. Go ahead and come to the table.
No. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my honor.
The chair recognizes Vice Sparks, and thank you for coming today. We are saving the best for last.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your patience. It's my honor this morning to introduce Ms. Elodia Brito to the committee for consideration of her appointment to the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles. Ms. Brito received a Bachelor of Science in Business Organizational Management from Lubbock Christian University and has served for more than 21 years in roles within the federal court system in the Northern District of Texas. She also served as Commissioner for the Board of Pardons and Paroles for the past 4 years. The Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles' mission is to determine which prisoners are to be released on parole or mandatory supervision, determine the conditions of all the revocation of parole and mandatory supervision, and to recommend the resolution of clemency matters to the governor. Ms. Brito and I had the opportunity and the privilege of meeting and visiting before this hearing. I'm fully confident that she will perform the duties of this position with meticulousness, seriousness, and the passion that it requires. With that, thank you, Ms. Brito, for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sparks. State your name for the record, and you've got 2 minutes if you'd like with opening comments.
For the record, my name is Elodia Brito. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Sparks, and respected senators on committee, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you today. I began my service as a parole commissioner in November of 2018. I was appointed by Governor Abbott to replace the retiring board member in September of 2022. I was reappointed by Governor Abbott in February of 2023. As Vice Chair Senator Sparks mentioned, my experience is completely and totally within the federal government, specifically the federal courts. I understand the importance of my position as a board member and of adhering to the safe transition and reentry of offenders into the community, as well as, and foremost, public safety. I have the privilege and the honor of seeing how the leadership and various perspectives and experiences of the members of the board make us a stronger board. We work with due diligence and continual commitment for all the citizens of Texas. I firmly believe that the board is made of the truest of public servants. We work diligently daily to make the difficult decisions before the board. If it be your will to confirm my nomination, I want to continue to do this very important work for the citizens of Texas. I thank my family for their love and support, and for my faith that keeps me grounded. Thank you, and I am open to any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brito. The many, obviously, offenses involve victims who have been severely impacted and traumatized by the acts of the offender. How do you see victim input as part of the parole decision-making process?
Victim input should and is an important part of the parole process. By allowing a victim to speak regarding their victimization, to validating the experience that they endured, are provisions that are of utmost importance in the parole process. It recognizes that they have suffered, that they have endured, and that they are a human being, and not just that the crime that they were involved in or that was against them was not simply against the state, but that of a human being.
That's good. Other than hearing them out venting, is there a part in the formula or consideration that may or may not influence their parole?
It's very much a part of the parole process. I mean, it's you're validating what has happened to this individual. How have they been affected by this offense, by this, and what we as the board need to do to assure their sense of security and safety.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any questions? Well, Ms. Brito, I think that you don't have any questions. Saving the best for last does have its advantages. Thank you for appearing before this committee. I want to thank you for your willingness to serve. You know, I think for all, and all of you come forward today for the Pardons and Parole Board and the chairman. I can only understand, believe, think, feel that it's a very difficult position that you're in, because when you believe in restoration and second chances or third chances, and then at the same time you're hearing the impact on a victim, I can imagine that's of everything we've heard today, every board that's come before us today, yours has got to be one of the most difficult. So thank you very much. If there's anything we can do, let us know. And that goes for any of you members on the board. With that, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like, let's see, the committee now opens up public testimony. Do we have any? We have one that is registering a position only for the ERS board trustee, but no one wishes to testify. Okay, if it's okay with the committee, we will submit this as part of the testimony. Is there anyone here, anyone else that wishes to testify on or for or against anybody who was brought before, a nominee brought before us? Hearing none, all public testimony is closed. Members, is there any other business to come before the committee? Hearing none, with no other business coming before the committee, Vice Chairman Sparks motions that the committee stand in recess, subject to the call of the chair. Thank you.